Hi everyone, my name is Daria Caraway, and in this lightning talk, I want to show you a couple of tips for debugging web apps with the Chrome DevTools. A little bit about me: I'm a Boulder native currently working at Workday as a software engineer here in the Boulder area. The Chrome DevTools features I want to show off today are the ability to set conditional breakpoints, which allow us to only break if a certain criteria is met, as well as DOM breakpoints, which allow us to break when a certain DOM element changes. And lastly, I want to do a little bit of event investigation, where we will inspect and manipulate event listeners straight from inside of the browser. So first off, I want to show you how conditional breakpoints work. I have this little demo, and right now, when I click this button, I expect something to show up on the screen, but what's actually happening is when I click this button, I get a big error. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at what's going on. I can see the error happening in the console. I'll go ahead and click on it, take me to the file. So I can see that I have this click handler, and when I click it, I have a bunch of inputs coming from somewhere that I don't necessarily control. And if any of those inputs are greater than 10, then an error gets thrown. Now, I'm mostly interested in the input that's causing the error to be thrown, and so you could definitely do this with a console log and log them to the console, but I want to take a look at what it might look like if we use the debugger. So I'm going to go ahead and add a breakpoint here and run the example, and you can see that I'll hit this breakpoint for every single input. So the first input is 1, it's not greater than 10, should be okay, and then 2, no error, 3, then 4, then 5, and 6, and maybe there are thousands of these inputs, and I don't really want to have to click this button for every single one until I see one that might throw an error. So what I'll do instead is I can right click on this breakpoint and say edit breakpoint. And here I can add a condition. So I want to say that this breakpoint should only be hit if the input is greater than 10. And the next time I hit this play button, the breakpoint will only be hit for an input greater than 10. So in this case, 100 is the input that is throwing the error. And now I can go through my code and my inputs and try to figure out where 100 is coming from. Next, I want to show you how to set a DOM breakpoint. So I have another example here, and when I press this button, I expect great content to be changed to new great content. But right now, when I press this button, something really weird happens. So you'll see something flash really, really quickly, and then all of a sudden the wrong content is on the page. I'll do it once more because it's very quick. Click this button, something flashes, and all of a sudden we have the wrong content, and it's really hard to figure out what's going on. So what I can do is I'll go ahead, inspect this whole area, and I'm going to click these 3 dots here and say break on subtree modification. So what this will do is if any part of the subtree underneath this DOM element changes, my breakpoint will be hit. So I'm going to go ahead and run my example again. And you can see this time we've hit a breakpoint. Something is being removed from the DOM. Great content is being removed. That's good. Something is about to be added now. So I can see that new great content is actually being added to the DOM. And then if I press play, it gets removed all of a sudden, which is kind of weird. And once more, then the wrong content gets added. So with these DOM breakpoints, we can see that new great content is being added, but something is coming after and replacing it. So maybe I can use that to focus my debugging efforts. Maybe it's not the file that's adding the content. I have to look at something that's happening afterwards. Lastly, I want to show you some event investigation. This is something that I didn't realize was part of the Chrome DevTools for a long time. And if you're debugging some nasty event bugs, it can be really, really useful. So I have another example, and when I click this button, I expect something to be logged to the console. But right now you can see the little button ripple. When I click it, nothing is happening, nothing being logged to the console. So what I can do is I can inspect this button. Here is my button, and I can go over here and click event listeners. And this is a list of all of the possible event listeners that can be registered for this button. If I open up click, I'll see all of the click handlers that are registered for this button. There's one at the top level that React puts there. And here is the click handler that I'm expecting to fire for this button. You can get some information about it. It's no op because all it's supposed to do is console log. Now, browser events are a little bit complicated, but essentially if anything underneath this DOM event is also capturing that event and then preventing it from further bubbling up the tree, we can see this behavior where my event handler here is never actually being called. So I'm gonna walk down the tree and see if there are any other offending event handlers. So nothing here, this is still the one that I'm expecting to fire. But when I click on this div, there is in fact another event handler. And if I open it up, I can see that this handler is calling to stop propagation, which is gonna make it so that the event doesn't continue to bubble up the chain, propagate up the chain. Now, if I want to double check that this is the event handler that's capturing the click I'm expecting, I can go ahead and remove it straight from the DevTools. And now when I click this button, you can see that my event handler that I'm expecting is firing. So it's really handy to be able to inspect those event handlers straight from the DOM and not have to change your code. And maybe you have event handlers coming from everywhere, and if you have a really big code base, it can be difficult to see the structure of your DOM from the code itself. So it's nice to be able to see it here and just investigate them straight in this panel. So hopefully next time, if you have a really sticky bug and you're not sure where to start, maybe one of these cool Chrome DevTools features can help you out.